always thought that I've been a Christian ever since I was conceived in my mother's womb. See, my mother and my father met at church. My mother was a worship team leader, and my father has served the persecuted church for over 30 years in Open Doors with Brother Andrew. Needless to say, being a Christian was all I've ever known until it wasn't. I lost my father due to heart disease or heart attack back in 2012. It was the grand finale of a long, excruciating pain of bringing him back and forth to the hospital for 2 straight years. See, my father was a 6-foot giant, jolly, loving father who was always the life of the party. And seeing him getting weaker and weaker day by day felt so confusing and traumatizing for me. Back when my father was alive but sick, my family always accepted and received well wishes, prayers, donations, funds, visitations, and even food from churches from all over the world. And coming from a Christian background, I always had faith that God will heal him. I felt like I was the woman who was going to touch the hem of Jesus' garment. Even when things felt worse, I always looked at the best. But long story short, my father suddenly died, just when everything seemed to improve. And in his death, my world turned upside down, and everything I knew felt like a lie. Why would God let my father die like that? My father didn't die peacefully. He died in pain. Why would God allow those things to happen to his own servants? And then I asked myself, is God even real? And that was the biggest heartbreak of my life. Losing my biological earthly father and losing my heavenly father at the same time. And since then, I didn't want to go back to church anymore. I forgot how to pray. I didn't even want to read the Bible. And when anybody would say a prayer for me or give me a verse, I would respectfully accept that, but in my mind, I would just roll my eyes. But deep down, I knew that I was still hurt, and I was walking around with an open wound for years and years. One day, my mom asked me to go to a church retreat, and I didn't want to. But my mom would insist that I go to that church retreat. And given that she was strong for us during my father's death, I went and honored her request. And there, I had this random conversation with a high school friend who was also my churchmate. I was aware that the friend was there to follow up on me, to encourage me, since he was one of the church leaders. So my wall was up. But for the first time, in that very conversation, something hit me. It's like I encountered the Lord again for the first time, once again. It's like God was real, again. And eventually, I slowly opened up to the church, but not to God, just to the church. And I enjoyed the company of my friends in church. I enjoyed the company of pastors. I felt the love of the church. Long story short, I was touched by God during one Sunday, unexpectedly. When the music was so simple, the message was so simple, Lord, I offer my life to you. And I just said, I prayed, in my silence, I prayed, Lord, how's Papa there? I just miss having a father. And in that prayer, I also realized that I missed having God's presence in my life, having a father, a heavenly father in my life. And God, in his still small voice, told me, I never left you. That's why you're here in church. That's why you're still here. And I just cried and cried silently to myself. And there, God reminded me that death is defeated. Physical death is defeated. Spiritual death is defeated. And in Jesus defeating death, Jesus is actually restoring God's original intent and design to be with his creation. Even if I see an empty chair on my family table where Dad used to sit, the irreplaceable void that my dad has left can only be filled again with the presence of my Heavenly Father.